And I have watched with glee, I'm not even going to lie, glee as the liberal left across the world have recoiled in horror. I watched for about 10 seconds, because it's appalling, Whoopi Goldberg and her mates on The View, and they're all dressed in black and they can't bring themselves to name him. But for me, and I think it's a big political lesson, I'm sure you'll agree, I hope you do, what it said to me was that 80 million people in America didn't care for ideological politics. They didn't care for posturing. They didn't care for anything other than the price of fuel for their car, the cost of their groceries, and the fact that their country was being overrun by migrants who were taking advantage of a soft system. And I can see massive, massive similarities in the United Kingdom, my friend.
Absolutely. I mean, the globalist elite, and I'm going to call them that for the purposes of this discussion, you know, Biden, Starmer, Macron, Scholz now that he's gone, but von der Leyen, all of them, they don't care about the individual member citizens of their countries. What they care about is some kind of global agenda where they promote themselves, where their ideology comes first, where, frankly, immigration doesn't matter because nation states don't matter. And the vote for Trump was obviously a vote for Trump, but it was a vote for putting the United States first, for borders for the United States, for the prosperity of Americans, and all that goes with it. Ditching net zero, cutting taxes on private enterprise, deregulating, supercharging the US economy. And it's a welcome change of direction by the biggest Western country in the world, by the biggest country, the most powerful country in the world. Because unless Starmer and Macron and all those other globalists get on this bandwagon, unless they join America and start deregulating, cutting taxes, promoting cheap energy and so on, unless they do that, our own economies are going to go down the pan. Completely. Because all foreign direct investment, all exports, everything will go to America. Capital will flow to America, and America will boom and will go down the pan. So I'm delighted that we've got this reversal in policy, and I just hope Starmer has got enough of a brain. I suspect he hasn't, but I hope he's got enough of a brain.
I completely agree. The thing about Starmer is, and I was talking to Ricky in the office before we came on, right? This is a man who in the last... Parliament has sat for 34 days. He's been abroad for 22 of them, pontificating and rushing around the world, playing the big, as you say, globalist, ideological... I think there's enough going on in this country, Ben, and that's why, for me, the Trump thing was refreshing. There are things about Donald Trump I'll never like. I think some of the things that he says are abhorrent. But I will absolutely, categorically tell you that, for me, a man who says, I'm going to put ordinary, everyday Americans first, right? I mean, that's important, isn't it, for any politician?
Yeah, you know, the intellectual chattering classes of North London would like to just rubbish him because he has a way of communicating, which, you know, in many ways is like a guy who's had a couple of beers and he's sitting at home chatting to his family without really minding his P's and Q's. Not necessarily the President of the United States of America. But forget about that. Look at the agenda. Look at what he's promising to do. And it is simply, as you put it, putting Americans first. And that hasn't happened from a head of state in the Western civilized world for 25 years. You know, we've been following this stupid dogma of sort of global prosperity, which actually basically means the dumbing down and the impoverishment of your own citizens. And that's not an agenda that can continue to wash.
Interestingly, too, globalists, Trump, of course, has made his point quite vociferously about NATO in the past, about Europe in the past, about tariffs, about lowering taxation. Everybody's running around and getting wound up. Starmer, apparently the only big leader that's going to cop out 29, he's in Paris with Macron, the short one. I would love to be a fly on the wall because they must be absolutely hacked off to high heaven that Donald Trump has succeeded. And, of course, he's now planning to thwart Trump on Ukraine. I don't think anybody knows what Trump is going to do, but I said something the other day which you might agree or not agree with. He's a businessman, man. He likes to close deals, and it'll play to his ego to go and talk to Putin and go and talk to Zelensky and all those sorts of things. Whether he makes a difference, I don't know. But I go back to it. I think all these politicians should get their ideologies out of their heads and start looking at their countries and going, what do my people want? What do my people need? What do I need to do? Because I don't think Starmer likes this country to make the United Kingdom what it once used to be, for God's sake.
No, Starmer and all these other people that I mentioned, including a whole load besides, you know, they're all anti their own country. Starmer is anti-British. Starmer wants to give over governance of the United Kingdom to Brussels. He wants to take down our borders, and he wants to govern through international treaties and international bodies. None of that is consistent with a domestic democracy. And, you know, they've already irritated Trump immeasurably by the opprobrium that they've leveled on him. And now they're doing it even after he's been elected by rushing off to Paris to make secret deals to try and head off what the Trump agenda might be. Trump's not stupid. He's sitting in the US. He's watching what the EU is doing, how they're panicked because of his presidency, and he will be insulted by their panic. And it's not going to engender a good relationship. And Starmer sidling up to the EU, frankly, he's choosing the wrong set of allies. He needs to choose the United States of America.
Completely agree with you.
The most powerful country in the world.
Let's get you on the other two things that I want to go on about all day. COP29. Is it just me? I get my kids say to me, Dad, you're not looking. You should look at what happened in Valencia. You should understand what's going on in the world. I flippantly will say to them, well, yeah, but I'm 60 and listen, you can deal with that. But what annoys me is we have this, again, ideological belief led by Miliband and Starmer that we should reach net zero and we should do this and we should do that. The point of the matter is, I bring it back to me, it's really very simple. It's about priorities. I want to warm the houses of pensioners. I want people who have served in the military, men and women, off the streets. I think our social care system, I think our justice system is in the goddamn toilet. I think there are things that need to be dealt with apart from this ideological belief. And there again, I love Trump, because what does he say? They're all jumping up and down, oh, COP29. And he just says, I'm going to drill and frack and frack and drill. Brilliant.
He says, drill, baby, drill.
Yeah, because it's underneath the ground and it's a commodity and a source of wealth for his country.
Absolutely. And you know, we've done things so badly in this country. We've turned off the taps of our naturally available gas and oil. We've turned it all off in the hope that renewables will come to the rescue before they're even in a position to take up the slack. We've put an energy noose round our neck. We've gone from energy independent to energy dependent at vast cost. No self-respecting, caring government, competent government would do that to its own people. COP29, you said it in a word, actually, before I came on air. You said I couldn't give a toss about it. And, you know, we can talk about all the ins and outs, but ultimately I couldn't give a toss. They've got to stop this nonsense and they've got to start putting their own people first.
Now, I don't want to upset you at 4:15 on a Monday afternoon, but we know that you have a political hero, so we're going to hear from Ed Miliband. Have a listen.
Have you ever played 193-dimensional chess? That's what I was doing back in 2009 at the Copenhagen Climate Summit, trying to get 193 countries to reach agreement. Yes, it's true, I did look younger then. I'm about to go and do it again in Azerbaijan at COP29. But why? Because it's the once-a-year chance to put world leaders on the spot to act on climate change. And at this year's COP, you'll have a British government representing you that believes in doing its bit at home and showing leadership abroad. Everything we're doing in Britain, from Great British Energy to our Clean Power Plan, is about lower bills, energy security, jobs and growth. But if we're going to keep future generations safe from the threat of climate change, we've also got to work with other countries. This government believes climate security is national security. That's why I'll be going to COP29 to play climate chess and fight for Britain.
Over to you. Honestly, Ben, I feel like going to the toilet again.
Well, you know, you talk about squandering British taxpayers' money. This man's committed 11 billion to African renewable energy projects. Why are we as a country financing African renewable energy products? It's not our obligation. We need to be looking at home. You know, I would cop out of COP29.
Lower bills, absolute rubbish. That's not going to happen. Lower bills. I mean,
we've got some of the highest energy costs in the West.
It's all about, isn't it, how this elite, as you quite rightly put it, believe that we should all be talked to and how it should all work out. And when he says, and I'm doing it for you, because I don't believe, do the majority of people in this country give a damn? I'm being complete. What do you think? What's the answer to that?
Well, I think they care, but they care to the extent that they want this to stop. They want North Sea gas. They want cheap energy. They don't want to replace their perfectly good gas boilers with heat exchange pumps that don't work properly. They're perfectly good depreciated internal combustion engine cars with electric cars that have no second-hand value, vastly expensive, and are going to be taxed anyway because our exchequer can't make ends meet without taxing cars. They don't want to be insulating their homes to a ridiculous point where you start getting mold. You know, some of the biggest problems we've now got in new build homes is mold because they're so tightly insulated at vast cost that there's no air in these homes. You know, we've got to get a grip of ourselves. We need a reality check.
I completely agree. And my favourite story of the day, hypocrisy. We've done ideology, we've done madness. We don't give a toss about COP29. Justin Welby, I'd love a balanced view from you, Ben Habib.
Yeah.
The Church of England bishop has gone so far, actually, Newcastle's Helen Ann Hartley has gone so far as calling for Welby to resign. This is the story of John Smith's abhorrent abuse of more than 100 boys and young men. This is the statement, right? I'm loving this. Statement from the Archbishop of Canterbury. The Archbishop reiterates his horror at the state of John Smith's abuse, as reflected in his public apology. He has apologised profoundly both for his own failures and admissions and for the wickedness, concealment and abuse by the Church more widely. As he has said, he had no awareness or suspicion of the allegations before he was told in 2013, and therefore, having reflected, he does not intend to resign. He hopes the Make-In review supports the ongoing work of building a safer church here and around the world. 2013, that's 11 years he knew.
And 5 years before Smith died, there was more than ample time to get a grip of the problem. There are a couple of things I'd like to say. I don't know if you've noticed it. This is anecdotal evidence. I don't have any statistical analysis to support it. But it seems to me that people in this country, the judicial process, the powers that be, are quite seemingly relaxed on paedophilia. People get away with stuff. Abusing children, taking photographs of children.
He didn't go to prison, did he? The old newsreader, he didn't go to prison anymore. No.
And you see it all the time. It's almost like it's part of this crazy liberalism where perhaps this is just a kink that, you know, we should somehow accept in society.
No.
And I find it, needless to say, I find it absolutely abhorrent. I think it's one of the biggest criminal offences any person could commit is the abuse of an innocent child. And we've got to be draconian on it. This guy Smith was a predator, 130 cases against him. But, you know, our Archbishop has lost touch with reality. He lost touch with reality a long time ago. First of all, when I became aware of it, when he condemned all Brexiteers as being lunatic, as if Brexit was some kind of devastating agenda.
Can I just stop you at that exact moment? You're absolutely bloody right, Ben. He was as vociferous as you like about Brexit, and as we know, it sort of split the country and people had opinions. But just remind me when Brexit was, 2016, yeah? He knew 3 years before this that this horrendous human being had abused 130 kids and did nothing. But there he is pontificating, and I've always thought, and this will upset some people and I apologise, the church needs to look a little bit inward. Whatever, that the church should be looking at its own behaviours and its own problems rather than pontificating on politics and stuff simply, again, from an ideological point of view. Welby is another bloody hypocrite. Get your own house in order, mate. Get your house in order before you start telling the rest of us how we should live our lives, yes?
And he's completely out of touch with his own religion that he heads up. You know, this is the Archbishop of Canterbury, the head of the English Church. And there he is deriding Brexit, which is the promotion of the United Kingdom, of which he should be fully behind. He also, I don't know if you remember this, but there was that Dean of Trinity College, Cambridge, in December 2022, who endorsed the likening of Jesus Christ's body after he's been taken down from the cross as a transgender body. And the wound on Jesus Christ's chest, delivered by a Roman centurion spear, likened that to looking like a vagina. And this was the Dean of Trinity College, and Welby stood behind him. This I can't understand it. He's traducing the very thing that he is meant to be representing.
And let's oh, that's my phone. That's really embarrassing, isn't it? Yeah. That's really embarrassing. But let's not forget exactly what I just said. look at the problems within both the Catholic and the Church of England. Look at the problems there have been without being specific. John Smith is that the tip of the iceberg? I've no idea. But if
Absolutely.
I was Welby, I would be wanting to get my own house in order. And when you start talking about everything else, you know, Brexit, right? 52% of this country voted for it. Deal with it. It was a referendum. Stop bitching about it. I think I cannot believe he thinks he's going to hold on. Because I tell you one thing, that's the sort of person the press will go for and go for and go for. It wouldn't surprise me if he's not gone within weeks. Do you not agree?
I'd love him to go. And the other thing I just want to say about him is putting $1 billion aside out of the $8 billion worth of the Church of England, putting $1 billion aside for reparations for the slave trade. And it's got nothing. There's no basis. There's no basis for that allocation. And what he's signalling is that the church has got something about which to be ashamed. He forgets William Wilberforce, who was the biggest advocate for the banning of the slave trade, was an evangelical Christian. The Christian missionaries from this country went abroad across the whole world, spreading the word of God against slavery. And he traduces his own church. I mean, the man shouldn't be in office. He shouldn't have been in office.
I want to thank you because it's like having a regular therapy session on a Monday. We love you, Ben Habib. You speak more common sense than anybody I know. Thank you so much indeed.